Okay, I've officially had my midnight snack and I'm now about to do this meaning the interchangeable fronts to this crop top without losing the ability to wear the crop top. But sadly, first of all, I have to unpick everything that I previously sewn on. And I'm going to start with one side. I'm not doing both sides on video because it would take a long time, and I'm conscious of just how much storage I've got left on my phone because I'm yet to actually upload anything because brain damage, and I just hate technology in general, so I like real life, really, and just want to hate computers and things associated with it. Okay, right, we should be unpicked for the most part. I'm not overly fussed about pulling off too much this side. What I shall do with that feather fringe there is I'll seal over the edge so that the ribbon won't fray, so the gluing of the popper tape will in effect be over that, so it will seal the edges. So I don't actually have to sew it, but I will put a couple of stitches in there just because it will make me feel better. Okay, that piece of thread is actually going to stay there because that's going to be my marker for where my poppers are going to go to. As I don't need to try it back on to do it because I already did that in order to work out where the stitches are going. So go there, where are my scissors? They're over there. I will be following the natural line of the top. Bang, bang, and we shall go to there, just beyond this one here for now. Then I've got this mark here, which was the inner layer for the second row of feathers, which I'm obviously going to keep because they looked perfectly fine where they were. And again, I'm going to go to the edge there. I'm going to take the popper to the edge. The ribbon is going beyond that because it's the poppering that I'm interested in having, you know, that's going to be the thing that fixes the top in place, as it were. And again, I'm going to go, no, I can't go too far because that other one will go over the top, so I am going to go to just here on this side, unless, can I get away with it? I think we're going to be overshooting it just a tad, unfortunately. We'll go with it. We'll keep it because I'll put it on to glue it in place. Well, I'll put it on to ensure where I'm going to glue is going to be okay, because I don't want to glue this flat. It's got a small cup in there, so in theory it's not going to happen, but I don't want to risk it. And also, I should have said was, because I'm going to be attaching the feather fringe and the feather fringe is going to be joining together, I need a way of holding my two feather fringes together. So I have this bikini clasp type thing, which I believe this ribbon is going to be just the right width to travel through. Yep, that is just absolutely wonderful. Obviously the downside is there is a popper base there, but that is neither here nor there because it can easily be slid through. And what I will do is I will seal that edge, or it will be on the feather edge itself, not on the top. So the side that's going on the feathers is going to be the side that's getting the clasp fitted to it. So the tape is going to be glued to the feathers. The bikini clasp is going to be at the end of the glued edge. And that's going to be sewn in place, and so therefore wonk, it's going to keep the feather fringe looking like a single piece, and obviously it will allow you to undo it and get yourself back out of the top, well, much more easily anyway, but you'll also know which feather side is going to stick on which breast based on the way that you in effect do or undo the top. Right, time to do some gluing. I'm just going to put some pegs on there. I love wooden pegs anyway, they always seem more springy than the other ones. There we go. Now we're talking, now we're talking. There. And so this final piece here, which does in effect have some glue on it, but that's fine, it's not going to cause a problem anyway, will be part of the bikini clasp, which I've currently lost. Wonderful. Now this second line here is this second line here. So we're going to go for gold on this, getting this one to stay in place. I've got to figure out which way is the right way up. Yep. I'll tell you what, why don't we use the fucking magnifying glass? Okay, so this is the side that gets glued. Okay. Is it? Let's have a look at my other side. Probably not. Nope. That is the side that gets glued. According to what I've done, there it is. Okay. Right. I have a small chalk line. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Aiming for the popper right on that edge there. And we're simply going to follow the material round, paying attention to where our chalk lines are. And that is that. Pop that to the side for now before I donk it onto the floor. Now, if you're my second layer, so attached there. Who knows? One of these was the second layer. In theory, it's going to be the shorter one. There as well. The actual popper part I want to finish there. I should just raise this slightly. So it's more breasticle formed. And I'm going to here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 poppers. That's more so because the thing is detached a bit. Got a little bit on the popper there. That's exactly why I'm not doing both sides of the popper together, because I would literally just glue them things shut. And same again there. I just literally overshot it and went for gold and brick. Okay. About to listen to music then, I had glue on my finger and I just stuck it in my hair, so well done me. And again, edge of the cup, starting down there, doink, 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 lifty, lifty. So I want to make sure I was sticking it in the shape of a breasticle, so I don't want to leave it laying flat. So if we follow that line, we want to go poppery, 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 pop, pop, pop. We do not want to go as far as there, so we only want to go to here. So I'm not going to go too far beyond there. I don't want the excess tape showing through. Siri, what's the time?
It's 22:14.
22:14 on a Tuesday. Not sure the date. I want to say the 18th. I could be wrong. Okay, so hopefully that's in shot, and it almost is, just like most of the filming I do. So that over there is the crop top. That's going to have the interchangeable things on it, essentially. It doesn't necessarily have to be feathers, that's just what I prefer to work with. So on my tray here I've got what is the outer layer of the feather fringe, which will sit along here. This is the inner layer, that's the inner layer for that side, same for that side. So all I'm going to do is glue my popper tape to the feathers. Sorry, I'm very tired. And I'm gonna peg each individual gap to get a good bond overnight. Then tomorrow morning, or at some point tomorrow, I will put on the side pieces, the bits that are attached and flapping around. They're attached so I know which bit belongs where. However, I'm going to want to stick the feather fringe on, clip it onto the poppers there, because I'm going to gather the feathers up like I did when I originally sewed it in place. Because what I'm going to do whilst wearing it is I'm going to clamp it to the shape of the crop top where the poppers would lay, and then I'm going to whip stitch the individual feathers to create the shape that I want. So when it comes to actually gluing the other half of the popper tape onto the feather fringe, I'm gluing it exactly where I want it to sit when it's on the top. If I was to basically take off the bits here and glue them on, I'm going to create Christ knows what kind of shape, but it's not going to be the one I'm looking for. So the bottom two don't matter because they're both the ribbon side of things, so they can only ever lay essentially the way that they lay. However, the feathers obviously can be manipulated into the shape that I'm after. Once I've got them clipped on, you know, I'll wear the top, I'll clip them on, I'll gather the feathers together, I'll clamp them with either just wooden clothes pegs or my bulldog clips into position. Then I'll sew the individual feathers together, so I'm creating the triangular shape at the front of the top there. Once I've done that, I'll remove the feathers from the top, and I'll be able to take my other half of my popper ribbons and then glue them onto the fringe as I want them, essentially. So I've got two layers of fringe. This is the bottom layer, that's the top layer. I'm working in reverse obviously, so I'm going to be gluing these, but the principle is going to be the same. Is I'll take some of my tulle and I'll lay a layer of tulle between the two feathers, because that way, instead of going through individual spines and trying to mesh them together, which isn't going to work if I've got spines that don't lay one on top of the other, and they don't because they're different width and etc. So I shall get a layer of tulle, place it in between the two layers there. Then when I come to basically whip stitch what are essentially the outer feathers and everything into position, there's a layer of tulle there that's going to essentially act as many shafts of feathers, and therefore allow my stitches to stay where I want them to be. So if I just turn this over this way, so you can see there's a spine there for the feather. So if I whip stitch through that directly through to the back, I'm going to pass through this layer of feathers, a layer of tulle, and the feathers beyond. And when I come back through, I'm still going to come back through onto that spine there, but I know I'm going to be securing the feather in place because it's going to be attached to the tulle rather than attached to the top. Let's begin the gluing exercise. So I've popped it in place. I've made sure that my feather fringe lines up with my poppers on the top. Obviously once it lines up with one end, it's a given it's going to line up with the other. I just double checked it. I've now pegged it, clamped it in place. I'm now going to use my E6000 glue as I ran out of the other glue. I don't know what brand it was. I can't even recall seeing a brand on it, but it was like an Amazon's Choice type thing, and I actually preferred the Amazon Choice type glue because the E6000 glue is very thick, and the viscosity is almost too much for what I want to do. I have to put an awful lot of labour in to spread the glue across a length. The other glue was very watery, which worked, in my opinion, it worked better because it meant that I didn't have to spend a long time manipulating the glue into position, which means, you know, it's not setting as I'm working, essentially. So I'm just going to flap this side back. I could probably go a bit beyond that there. I just don't want to lose my line up and everything. So I'm going to clip that back there. Fold that back. Grab some glue. I'm not even going to bother squeezing it into my pot, I don't think, because like I said, it's so thick. I think I'm literally just going to go blob, blob, blob. Then I'll use my little spreader that came with the other one and just kind of spread it out as far and as wide as I can. It doesn't have to be perfect, and I'm going on to this ribbon here rather than this because I don't want any glue kind of seeping through the popper itself and potentially preventing a good adhesion when it comes. So that is why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it, because then I'm not risking basically potentially redoing a top again and again and again. Get off my fingers. Okay, I'm satisfied that that is going to be enough. So this usually drops it randomly. Come on, you. If I was sensible, I'd just go and grab some tweezers and I could just do it that way, but not feeling very sensible. So flap that back slightly, fold over that end so it's going to get sealed off in the glue. So it's going to be glued into a seal rather than sewn. She says, praying that that happens. And it should do. I've got some glue right up to the end there. So, and if I didn't, it's not going to be the end of the world because I can just put a little stitch in there. Okay, clamp. Guess it was that one I used then, was it? Okay, so now I'm just going to make sure the grippy part of the peg sits on the glued area. That's where we need it. And there's just enough tension in the pegs to create a bond. Okay, side, well, it's the same side but in a layer. So oops, just ran that right across all of the poppers there like an idiot. Okay, get a lid on that. Spreader. Ooh, yep. This is why I work on a tray. So I don't go just sticking glue all over the dining table. Okay, that is going to be a-okay. Right, flap them over. I'm not putting any kind of tension to the popper ribbon. Popper ribbon? Yeah, I suppose it's ribbon popper, whatever. I just want it to sit as it is, as it were. So I'm not going to be stressing that side of things. A clamp. No, this side definitely needs clamping first because That's the end that I'm sealing there, and it's desperate to come open again. So just getting that on there. Wonderful, some pegs. Sliding down a tiny bit there, hope you saw that. Sleight of hand to make sure that the ribbon is going to lay in a uniformed fashion. Okay, that's that. That's one side done. Now we can take both of those off. Okay. Just to save a bit of time, hopefully. Famous last words. Okay, so plan of action is tomorrow, once my glue's all set, clip on the poppers to the top. Chop off some tulle, and I'll probably just go 2 layers. I don't think I'm going to need more than 2. I wouldn't have thought so. I'm going to place a double layer of tulle. It's going to be oversized. It's going to be beyond the size of the... Irrelevant. Stick to the fucking point. A double layer of tulle, oversized, beyond there. So I can clamp it around the edges of the top to the inside, of where my chesticles will be, essentially. Because what that will do, that will allow me to stitch the feathers in place whilst wearing the top, and the feathers will grip to the tulle, essentially. That's my plan. So I'm going to get my tulle and I'll just lay it across the feather fringe here, going beyond the feathers themselves, so I can clip it to the top there. Can you just check and see if I'm on camera doing this for me?
Yeah, sure.
So just have a look at my phone.
Yeah, you are. Your face is like half in it, but your full body and stuff is...
Yeah, the part I'm working on is...
Yeah, the camera goes to about half a foot above your shoulder.
Okay.
So...
What are you doing?
I'm trying to figure out how in frame that is.
It doesn't matter.
Because I want the guitar picks.
Oh. I guess you want my guitar as well.
Probably.
It's going to play air guitar using a pick. Sliding down. Like that. But for now, I'm simply interested in sticking to the black line that I've got there. And I'm going to whip stitch the first layer in place onto the tulle. And then I'm going to repeat the process with the outer layer there. And I'm just whip stitching it a couple of times. The inner layer I'm not too concerned about, because obviously it's not going to be visible, because the outer layer is going to be in effect the one that's on show. However, I do need to make sure that I attach the feather
it's not flapping around. Moving forward slightly here, so you can see I'm swooping this outer edge further around. It's already been secured via this one here, but I just want it to sit a bit tighter. That way the outer layer isn't having any resistance pushback on it, whilst then trying to secure that one to the tool as well. And therefore we're going to keep a nice edge that we were after, keeping in line with the shape of the breast area of the top. And the tool is going to obviously provide some strength to the construction of this breasticle area. So the removal of it is going to be gentler on the feathers, because you're in effect going to be removing the popper tape which is attached to the tool before it's attached to any feathers, and therefore it will prevent any sort of cranking on the feathers and like snapping the shaft of them and everything. Right, I'm happy that that is going to be enough stitches for that first layer, because we're simply sandwiching them together. I'm going to stick this down here, slide it down as far as it will go. So we're sticking nice and close to the popper area. Use my hands. I'm quite nervous of these pins that I've got down here. I am going to get stabbed by them. It's more of a when, not an if. Now you can probably see here I've kind of overshot the area. Now that was intentional, because this is a first go. I would rather have had too many feathers on my fringe than too few. And the same for the other side here. I just have slightly overshot it. But you know, as a first go and an experiment, you're better to have too much than too little. So I'm now going to simply do what I did before when I was sewing them by hand. I'm just going to drag my fingers up, and anything that overshoots the line of the black top will simply be trimmed off with a pair of scissors on completion. I hope you can anyway. See that there's a crease in the tool there, so that's fine. I'm going to get my peg. I'm just going to, she says, try and find the outer edge there. And I want to just use that to hold that in place to some degree. And then that way I'm working on the side that I'm working on, and I haven't got to be worrying about repositioning everything on this side. It's basically acting like a third hand, as it were. I'm going to keep my tails nice and long, because it's going to be harder to tie them off at the moment, because I've got them clamped to the top in effect. So I just want to make sure I've got room to play with them when it comes to tying off without actually having to remove that peg off of there. Okay, so I've got my next area selected. Same process, in and out the back, and you're kind of working. You don't have a lot of space to work with in effect. So I'm not pulling the feathers and the tool away from the top. I'm trying to operate as close to the way I want them to lay on completion, because obviously if I start yanking it further away from me, then when I come to stick it in place, I'm potentially going to have some sort of weird look to it, because where I've stitched it, but I've stitched it whilst it's like 4 inches away from the cup area, rather than trying to keep as close quarters as possible. If you look at the side, I've got quite an overshoot there of feathers, because there's a line I was looking to go to, which meant that there was some exposure still of the black top. So the action, as it were, is literally finishes at the side of my breast, and my breast doesn't go back there. So I'm going to trim off the excess feathers to begin with, because I don't want to stitch them into the body of the top, knowing full well they're going to have nothing supporting them, and potentially are going to cause the whole effect to be ruined, because we've just got literally a straggler just hanging around, as it were. There's nothing securing it to the top via the poppers or anything like that. And the other thing is, by stitching that in place at the moment, I'm going to drag up that ribbon there, and I don't want that. I want that ribbon to be sat flush against there. So I'm going to remove the excess, and I can see where the excess is. If I just turn around a bit more. I didn't completely secure the popper tape to the top at the very end because I wanted to know how much I had to play with. Did I in effect want that last popper on, or did I not? It turns out I do, so that's good, but that's also given me a line there to work to with regards to the feather fringe, so I'm not going beyond my intended area with the feathers. So I'm going to switch myself back around this way, grab my scissors. That is going to be sufficient there. So now if I turn around, you can see where my outer layer is and finishes, and then there's the inner layer there. So I'm going to do the same with the inner layer. I'll come around and I'll show you this area. You can see my feathers scooping in on that breast area there, on that inner layer. And I've got my tool for the outer area, where I can now have something to work with to finish off that line without... Whoa, sorry, I'm so achy today. And I know I'm getting a terrible cold because I can hear it in my voice. And now that is what we're working to, essentially. And again, we'll trim off any excess feathers there after everything is secured. And as you can see, it's pretty bloody secure. So flap that back there, take that through there, flap them away. I'm going to draw that one over there. There we go. Pull. That's good enough. Pull that one back in place. Sorry, that was actually really quite aggressive. I don't advise going that aggressive with the feathers. That's just because I'm really desperate for a coffee. And that one's definitely going to need to have another stitch because he's essentially just kind of free falling at the moment. So I'm going to need to come through the tool there, come through the tool there, come through the back there, come back through here, come back through here, and then we shall pull. Try not to pull upwards, trying to pull backwards in effect, so I don't end up just running the stitch through the feather and then simply just lifting it back off again. Right, I'm going to tie that area off there. The stitch is going to go here, and then I'm going to say that is basically that side done. It's good, you can see the clasp there. Okay, right, recap. Get myself in the spotlight. Try and move freely, go for it. So you will be able to see there's a gold clasp there, I'm hoping. I don't know what other people see most of the time, and sometimes I'm not even sure what I'm seeing. But the gold clasp there isn't actually attached to the centre part of the top yet. It's just simply been attached to the poppers that are attached to the top and folded over and pinned in place, because I wasn't too sure whether I wanted a clasp to be there in effect. However, now that I've secured the feathers to the tool and clipped the feathers to the top, removed the excess from the side there, and removed the excess from the front there, I'm happy now that, let me point it out with my scissors because I don't know how well it will show up, but where my scissor blade is currently laying, that's where the popper tape is attached to the top. And this is the side that's going to be stuck to the inside of the tool, and then that will be secured to the top, and voila, a beautiful, beautiful creation that can be removed and changed for other things. Okay, I have to have a coffee. Just got to stitch this clasp in place using the popper tape, because therefore it will, you can undo that, and then when it comes to taking the top off, it doesn't matter if like your traps go like a great big fucking triangular shape or whatever, you can get it on and off. It's my video. Okay, so this is the final part of my interchangeable top. Why? Brain damage. In the zone. Zone that shit right out. Beyond happy with that. And best of all, watch this. Watch him hit the floor. Second layer. Now I can make other things to stick on there now.